Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We are delighted to be here for our weekly market update with Miles Franklin's CEO, Andy Schectman. Today is Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. Andy, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance, especially for a live stream weekly market update.
Good to be here. I appreciate your flexibility with my ever crazy schedule. So thanks.
Well, I think our subscribers and viewers who love you will never mind if we get a chance to do a live stream. So that never is a bad thing. It's always a good
Well,
thing.
much
So,
appreciation.
and that's cool that so many of you are out there already. If you are hearing our voices and you don't know how to ask a question for Andy Schectman, the trick is you've got to be subscribed to Liberty and Finance on YouTube. So make sure you're on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to Liberty and Finance, and then at the below your window, you should see a live chat button that you can click on and join the live chat. Just type your question in the live chat and we will see if we can get these questions answered tonight. And it'll be a great thing. Andy, just before we went live, you were talking about a flash crash in Bitcoin that then I guess bounced back, but it's kind of rattled a bunch of people's calmness today. We know anything more about that?
Yeah, it's the price of Bitcoin flash crashed down to $8,900. Someone sold $55 million worth, 400 tokens or 400 coins, and it quickly recovered back to like $63,000 or something. But I'm sure startled a lot of people in that something can fall that fast, that quickly. We've seen that actually with other commodities like silver, even where there's a very, very brief flash crash and then it pops right back up. And you wonder if that's a problem with the platform or whatnot, but
Hmm.
it's frightening when you see the volatility that is possible in markets where it can lose, in this case, almost 90% of its value in seconds. So I'm sure it was a glitch,
Yeah.
but nonetheless scary, that's for sure.
Well, with my lifetime of career in engineering and data science, there certainly can be anomalies that can come through in a data stream that'll throw your signal way off. And usually you just try to ignore that as you're looking at the signal. You look for where the main signal is and you don't look for those spikes. But sometimes, as we've seen, like on the COMEX Open, when a year and a half's worth of mine supply gets dumped on, in the lean hours and in the access market in between hours and that kind of thing, there's a very specific reason and a very specific cause. And you wonder, because having formerly traded stocks and options and that sort of thing, if you put buy limit orders in to snag a low spike, sometimes you get lucky. So I wonder if anybody got lucky. We'll hear stories about that leaking out maybe, or maybe that didn't happen and it was just a data glitch. We'll
Yeah,
see.
but when you see that type of dumping at the PM fix, right when London closes before New York opens in what's called the access market, I mean that's a drive-by shooting. I don't care what anyone says. I mean that trader, if was done intentionally, would be shot and fired, and probably in that order, because to dump a tremendous amount of gold or silver in the access market when people are on their way home or asleep and there's virtually no traffic in that
Hmm.
marketplace is done specifically to get the worst price, the worst settlement price. And these are things that I've been screaming about forever, is the AM fix and the PM fix, where over time, if you look at the Dimitri spec charts, where he takes 10 years worth of market action and puts them into a graph, and it's just straight down at the AM fix and straight down at the PM fix. It's highly manipulative, no matter what the excuse is. And I listen to Rick Rule. He's very eloquent and makes a very compelling argument about the way he describes it. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there is no way to describe it other than highly manipulative, so that it always opens up in New York on the downswing. And there was a time where a man worked for me named Andy Hoffman and was prolific in his research and his writing, and he showed at one point, this was I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, it was all the time. And I haven't looked at it lately, but maybe 7, 8 years ago, where somewhere in the neighborhood of 95% of the Sunday evenings into Monday morning, it opened up lower into New York. And you just wonder, I mean, at what point does it become obvious that this is not how free markets work. So as Chris Powell of GATA says, and again, everyone should donate a few bucks to GATA, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. Everybody should. We all owe them a debt of gratitude. Anyone that owns gold and silver owes Bill Murphy and Chris Powell a thank you. And I know they would love even $10 donation. And I don't make anything for that. I appreciate what they've done. They've stuck their neck out longer than anybody for this market, for all of us. But he says there are no free markets anymore, just manipulations. And most of it is in the interest rate market, the LIBOR markets, all of these markets where prices are derived through interest rate settlement have been manipulated. And what better market to suppress than the canary in the gold mine, gold and silver? And there are lots of other reasons I think that silver in particular is suppressed. But look, you can only suppress a market or manipulate a market for an extended period of time by pushing it in the direction it's going. And when the world is buying gold and silver the way that they are right now in all commodities, base metals, soft commodities, corn and soybeans and wheat and everything, these countries are buying commodities. As Zoltan Pozsar says, Bretton Woods 3 is all about commodities and transparency. And this is where we're going. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think the ability to continue to flash crash gold and silver, if you will, and it's really not a flash crash. It's just manipulative every evening into the morning. It's becoming a very dangerous game.
We've got a bunch of questions. I want to see how many we can get through tonight.
Yeah, let's do it.
Rad Rob says, Andy, do you think the United States Mint will ever produce fractional silver American Eagles?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe they have never done it ever and since 1986. So, in fact, I don't know, other than the Royal Canadian Mint, I can't think of any other fractional coins. And the Canadian Mint does make some pretty cool half-ounce coins that we've sold from time to time. I forgot what they are.
The polar bear.
Yeah, that's it. And they're cool. They come in boxes of 240 coins. It's a little box about this big, but
they're very cute. They're very beautiful. Yep.
No, I don't know. It would be cool if they did. I would love to have some if they did, but I've never been told that they are planning it.
So just a point of order that the United States Mint made junk silver, all the dimes and quarters are fractional silver coins. They're not pure silver bullion coins.
But that was legal tender currency, not a there's a difference between legal tender and it being currency. And yeah, that's the neat thing about junk silver. It's very fractional. It's very gives you great utility and is made by the Treasury rather than the Federal Reserve. I like that point.
We have a question here from John. India took a huge amount of silver recently, I heard. Where did it come from?
70 million ounces. Well, who knows where it comes from? I mean, they've imported over 400 million ounces in the last 2 years. 70 million in February, I believe, was the number. And that's almost exactly, now it's saying this is where it came from, but look at the amount of silver that's been bled off of the COMEX in the last 2 years. It's pretty damn close to 400 million ounces. And so they are taking it from wherever they can get it. And whether it be refining coming out of Zurich or deliveries off of COMEX or the LBMA, this is what I mean by you can't suppress a market when the direction is the opposite. It's trying to hold back a giant wave with a piece of plywood. It doesn't work. And when we suppress the paper price, and I talked about this with the new BRICS currencies, where they've said they came out. The guy comes out and publicly says that he says, for the moment, price is determined by Western speculation. We produce these commodities, we consume them, but we do not have our own price mechanism. He says it's impossible to make any strategic planning for economic development if you do not control the prices of basic commodities. Price formation with this new currency should get rid of the Western exchanges of commodities. I mean, they know what we're doing. They know that we're holding back the price and they're using it against us. And India is part of BRICS. They are part of the group that understands that if you suppress these unnaturally, these commodities that are not just industrial. Look, Canada's trying to there's a whole movement in Canada trying to call silver strategic, and it is strategic. It's strategic for India and it's strategic for all of us. And this manipulation will end badly because when they started doing it, these countries weren't standing for delivery, but they are now.
We have a question now. This is something we did talk about around December timeframe of last year when the premiums came down really low for the first time in a long time on American Silver Eagles. And we were encouraging people to consider swapping non-American Silver Eagles or rounds, bars, foreign country coins, or whatever, for Silver Eagles because uh, being able to get into the mint of if you live in the US, having the coin of the realm, as Bill Holter likes to say. Here's a question from Vina Ediri says, Hi, Andy, would you trade your silver coins for bars? And I know we did talk about that too when the Eagle premiums were super high a year and a half earlier. Eagle premiums were up 11 and a quarter or whatever we were paying over, on swaps. So I guess you can talk about how people might want to watch for those anomalies on either end of that.
I'm glad you mentioned the word anomaly. When I look at the most successful trades by far to my client base, those that are mutually beneficial to all, every single one of them centers around price anomalies, ratios that are out of whack. Where, down here in Delray Beach, if I woke up here, which technically I guess it's still winter, I guess. If I woke up to 4 feet of snow on the first tee box in my backyard, I wouldn't call my sister back in Minneapolis and tell her to send me one of my two snowmobiles in her garage because it's an anomaly. But much of what we've talked about for a long time, the silver to gold ratio, or a lot of these anomalies in price, or just in economics right now, but in particular with silver and gold, the anomalies, when you see them, when they're true anomalies, you take advantage of them. And trading coins to bars right now is not an anomaly. It was an anomaly most of the last 3 years to see American Eagle premiums where they were. I'd never seen them where bid prices are north of $12, where they're
Mhm.
being sold around the country for 14 and 15. I'd never seen that before.
Mhm.
That is an anomaly, just as much of an anomaly as 90-to-1 ratio gold to silver. If you take advantage of those ratios, and even though the old statement, the market can stay irrational longer than you can say solvent, is true, but anomalies are there for a reason. It's like if your favorite baseball player started out in the month of April batting, 900. There's only been
Mhm.
one baseball player in the modern era to hit over 400. It was Ted Williams on the last day of the season. So if someone started out batting 900 in April, by the end of the year, the law of averages plays out. That's how it works. And the same thing is true with all of these things. In this case, it's not an anomaly yet. And maybe there will come a time when premiums shoot back up to where they were, because during 2020, 21, 22, and half of 23, I was very consistent. I told people not to buy coins because it was an anomaly. And, taking advantage of those distortions in price and in logic are always good to do, but there are never any guarantees that they play out as fast as logic would expect them to. And the silver to gold ratio is a big one. But even looking at technically right now, I think we're on the cusp of seeing silver do very, very well. And when that gains recognition and you see coin premiums spike in the face of volatility in the country, yeah, maybe that's the time, but not right now. It's not worth it.
There's a question here, or a comment actually, about Silver Task says, we're not being told about central banks buying gold. I think that's probably true that most people, the vast majority of people, have no idea about that. Any comments from you about the fact that the mainstream financial press has simply been strangely silent? Strangely silent. You could have predicted it. Anyway, they've been ignoring gold for a long, long time. But any comments on that?
Yeah, look, this is to be expected. And, we don't hear that we've seen 95 tons of gold taken out of the LBMA this year. And we don't see that we have record amounts of gold being taken off of the COMEX. And we don't hear about anything that is relevant. The media does a horrible job of telling us what's going around the world. Look at the lack of data talking about anything that's happening with the BRICS, or with the loss of the petrodollar, perhaps, or gold's tier one status. All of these very important things are completely and totally ignored. And, I spend in a tremendous amount of time searching all over the place to find this information. And much of it is, it's after the fact. And so, I mean, if you're a central bank, look, we know that China's bought for roughly 14 straight months in a row, but they claim that they only have 3,000 metric tons when we know that they probably have as much as 30,000 metric tons or more. And they're the largest producers, the largest accumulators. They're buying it all over the place in ways that are not being cataloged or um, uh, registered. And in fact, I don't remember the exact numbers. Everything's kind of mumble jumbo in my head, but Last year, there was a report by the mainstream talking about all this gold that had flown,
Hmm.
through the refineries in Switzerland and flown eastward, and they didn't know who bought it, and they only knew that roughly 40 or 50% of it, who bought it, and the rest of it, they said they assumed it was the BRICS countries. I mean, if you're one of these countries, the last thing you're going to let everyone know is what you're trying to do. It's misdirection. If you tell everyone this is what we're trying to do, well, then you get crowded out of your own trade. And the world is so like this with information, misdirections everywhere. And so we are purposely not being told what's going on, nor are we ever told what's going on with the United States gold. And what happened with I don't know, $24 billion or so worth of gold that was sold by the Ukraine to fund the war? And what happened to Gaddafi's gold? What happened to Saddam Hussein's gold? Why hasn't our gold been audited since 56? And these are all questions that we should know. And you got to dig, 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 dig to find what is out there. But indeed, we do know that the central banks, from what we're being told, have bought more over the last 2.5 years than ever before. And this is a trend I believe arguably is continuing as you see divestment and lack of retail demand. I mean, it's still strong, but not like it should be. And yet the price keeps going up as you see the amount of gold being, lots of gold being bled out of the ETFs. Why would it be that way? If gold is leaving the ETFs, why is it going higher? Why is it going higher in the face of positive real interest rates? It's
Hmm.
because the central banks are buying it voraciously and not really telling us how much they're buying, I believe.
You've spoken about different exchanges as well. Anthony Shepard asks, when will the silver arbitrage between the COMEX and LBMA and Shanghai Gold Exchange be resolved?
It's getting close. Silver's $3 higher. It's like 28 bucks an ounce right now in Shanghai. And we've seen, look, 350 to 400 million ounces taken off of the COMEX in the last couple of years. And right now, when you're looking at the London Metals Exchange, it's down to its all-time low of 814 million ounces, of which 60 to 70% belongs to the ETFs or the Bank of England. A lot of it is SLV. I mean, the majority of it. And so, there's been over 1,200 tons of silver delivered so far this year. Who to? Don't know. But that's what the numbers say.
Hmm.
And 76 million ounces bought by India in February. So when you look at the demand coming off the exchanges, where the LBMA is at its all-time low, where the COMEX is being bled dry, where the arbitrage knob is turned up right now to $3 an ounce higher, basically in Shanghai than in London or in Chicago. It is happening, and this is the little by little by little by little, then all at once. And but that's the thing you need to be able to see, and people need validation before they. I mean, this is validation, but it's validation short of visual validation. But you can see what's happening. Look, as I said before, look at what this guy said. The finance minister, the Russian finance minister, we know they're manipulating the price. It's the same reason they just voted to build a BRICS grain exchange, because the prices of all the soft commodities, the grains, are being priced in Chicago, and so why should they be
Hmm.
subservient to that? And so they are trying to set mechanisms, if you will, where they can price things themselves. And so that will end, another thing that will end badly. By the way, I'm going to stand up for 1 second. My dog, you hear her, she hits the bowl when she wants water. So I just happen to have some. She'll do this through the whole video. Hang on 1 second.
Hey, I was going to mention we'll get back to Andy when as soon as he returns.
I'm
But
here. I can hear
a
you.
lot of the clients, a lot of the clients who've been calling us to talk about how to protect their individual households' financial security have been taking care of business for their own selves. People try to reach out to family members. People try to reach out to their friends, their neighbors, their coworkers as best they can. But you can only, as you've told us in the past, you can only, really help yourself, and you try to reach one person at a time. Some people are able to listen, some people aren't. However, of the 100,000 subscribers we've got across our platform on our different channels, there have got to be a significant number of all of us who have either direct responsibility or at least some influence and contact with someone who has fiduciary responsibility for pension funds, endowment funds, church or charitable savings accounts, college or university funds or trust funds, that sort of thing, retirement funds. we have or know people who have responsibility for maintaining, protecting significant nest eggs that people are counting on for being there for their health, for their future, for their retirement, for whatever. Folks, if you are one of those people, or if you know someone who is one of those people and you have their ear, talk to them about, have them reach out to us here at Liberty and Finance, and we can consult with them about what they're doing or what they could be doing to help make sure that they're not leaving all of the people who are dependent on their fiduciary responsibility exposed to the volatility that may be coming. Because when Andy talks to us about how we're not hearing about this stuff on the mainstream press, I'm very concerned that, as all along we've been here since 2013 with reluctant preppers, now Liberty and Finance, talking about how we can need to take proactive action to position ourselves ahead of time. That whole thing, I'd rather be 7 years early than one day late. When we end up with major banking crises re-erupting, whether it's going to happen this year, whether it's going to happen around the elections, if we have more civil unrest like we did around the riots, 3 years ago, that could happen again around the elections this year, et cetera. What could happen to our financial markets, the stock market, the bond market, et cetera? And how's that going to affect all of those funds that are sitting there, supposed to be waiting for the future of all those organizations and those individuals and those people and their retirements and everything? Think about it. If you have a way of planting a seed, reaching out, please share our phone numbers. They're on our website, Liberty and Finance. You can look it up. And please, we'd love to talk to them and consult with them about how we can help. Okay, Andy, we've got, if you have any more questions on that, Andy, because you've certainly had some fairly high profile groups, offices, whatever, reach out to you as far as how to protect not just an individual household, but to protect broader assets.
Well, it's there are a lot of people that are well read reading the wrong stuff. And when you say this, most people will get real severe pushback from financial advisors, and most financial advisors, this is not something they focus on. And we can all be guilty of learning more and more about less and less till we know everything about nothing. And that's why I love macroeconomics. I try to look at the big picture. It's not the rustling leaves of the trees, it's the forest. And this is where arguably your gut is your best financial advisor, and you are more worldly than the people who are advising you with finances. And recency bias and normalcy bias are very dangerous things when you come to the end of a system. And there are very, very smart people out there, even people on your show that I admire that still don't believe these things can happen. But maybe that's where I diverge. And I do think that is trouble afoot. And I think if you're not a contrarian, as Rick Rule says, you're bound to be a victim. I mean that sincerely. And I think now is the time to remember that the money these people are managing belongs to you. And sometimes you need to understand that the amount of effort you put into earning it, that same effort should be put into researching and understanding. But remember, sometimes the people who are advising you don't look at the world the same way, and you need to be prepared if you're going to go down that road to hold your ground and say, this is what I want to do. And it's a tough road. You make a very compelling point, Dunnigan, but it's a tough road. So it's a lonely existence being a contrarian, looking at the world this way. I'm not a doom and gloom person. I'm a happy person, but this stuff, there's a fine line right now between pessimism and realism. And if you believe this in your heart, then stand up for yourself and remember, these people are managing your money. It's your money. And so I'll just leave it at that.
We have a question here. Do you see the nationalizing of mines in other countries becoming a factor on the price of precious metals?
100%. Yeah. I mean, at what point do these countries realize that they are selling to the West a depleting asset that is very, very, very important to own? It is strategic. It is a new foundation of transparency and commodities that are this is, I believe, as Zoltan Pozar says, he's right. I mean, we're moving away, I think, from opaque debt instruments. We're moving away from things that are just promises made. I think there's counterparty risk is going to be something very dirty over the coming years. I think that is something that people will grow to understand, that the world is very systemic, and connected together, incestuous. And if one goes down, it will bring down many others. And it's not just the banks, it's the insurance companies, and it's all sorts of things. And there is something beautiful and simplistic about owning something that is not someone else's
Hmm.
liability at any time. And I think people will understand that. I do believe people will understand that. And I hate to be that guy, but I think if I'd rather have my head out of the sand and be able to get out of the way of what's coming than
Hmm.
just be blissfully ran over by it.
I love to quote good friend Wayne Jett, the author of The Fruits of Graft, Great Depressions Then and Now. He talks about he said the greatest trick that was ever pulled on the working man was a violation of natural law. He says natural law is that the working man should be able to take the fruits of his labor and put it in his pocket and save it for a future need or opportunity, privately and freely, to do whatever he wants with it. It was his work, it was part of his life. He gave up for that. It's his, he owns it. And he said the greatest trick that was ever pulled on workers was to say, no, you can't put the fruits of your labor in your own pocket. You have to write it on a piece of paper and put it in the banker's pocket, and they can do with it whatever they want. So that's the beauty. When you talk about the beauty and the simplicity, a a gold or silver coin is a time capsule. It is you have captured part of your life energy. It is proof of work, and you can hold on to it, or you can give it as a gift, or you can sell it or trade it or whatever. You can do what you want with it because it's yours. It's part of your life, and you own it. And anyway, that's just a
Well, I
beautiful
think that
thing to
the
think about that.
biggest wake up call to the public will be just like Jerome Powell said, there will be bank consolidations. Now, the realization at some point that we are all unsecured general creditors and making a loan to the bank, if you will. It's not a deposit, it's a loan. They're not leaving it there. They're investing in things like treasuries or mortgage-backed securities. This is how the whole problem started because of the lack of any reserve requirements. And when people wake up to this realization, because since you're little boys and girls putting dimes and quarters in your piggy bank, you think it's a deposit, and it's not. And if you read the bail-in legislation, it says two things. One, it says several things, but the two that stuck out to me is one, that the FDIC will be responsible for making sure that the credit or the shareholders and the unsecured general creditors, i.e., the depositors, bear the brunt of the losses, and number two, that it takes between, I think, 1 and 3 or 2 and 4 years to be paid out by the FDIC as they investigate everything. You want to get your money back quickly. This will create such a shit storm that people will lose their mind because no one even understands that
Mhm.
that bail-ins are real. Again, people watching your show do. Go ahead if you're watching this and ask one of your buddies who you've known your whole life, do you know what a bail-in is? And I guarantee you 75, 80, 90% of the people you ask will have no idea.
Mhm. We missed I missed a chance to chime in earlier when you were talking about nationalization. Leonidas says, I spoke with Keith and he had a question and I have a question for Andy. What happens to silver if it is finally recognized by US or Canada as a strategic metal?
Well, I mean, look, I who's to say desperate governments can do desperate things? I mean, I think that's what he's getting at. Silver was half-heartedly confiscated in 1934 after gold. You could make an argument that silver should be if they're going to confiscate something, it should be silver, not gold. Gold is a tier one reserve asset that everyone is buying across the globe, including, China is prodding their citizens to buy it. I'm not saying I expect that to happen, but it is a strategic metal. And when you realize that it's an asset that is depleting in nature, and just look at the numbers for the US Mint or any industrial numbers, the majority of the silver that we use for industry and even the mint is imported from other countries. At what point does a country like Mexico, who's watching their silver in-ground supply disappear, say we can't do it anymore? They're already, I believe, doing it with lithium and at some point you're going to see every country for themselves type of mentality. I don't know. It's a scary thought. It is. And look, the what if questions are really hard to answer. Hope for the best, prepare best you can for the worst, and let's hope that it doesn't happen. But if you live under a turtle shell forever because you're afraid of doing things like that, you have to swing to hit the ball. And I would just simply say that we hope it doesn't happen, but Lord knows, a lot of things have happened over the last few years that I never thought would.
And I think we can look back to history for a lesson. They always say history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. and that is the 300 years plus of colonialization of the whole world by the British, the French, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Germans, everybody. Um, they would go into all these other countries all around the world, and they would basically set up scalping operations, just taking all their minerals, taking their people sometimes, or telling them you're not going to grow food sustenance crops like you used to. Now you're going to grow cotton because then we'll send it off to mills. We're going to mill it up in England. We're not going to mill it in your country. So you're always going to come out on the wrong end of the stick here. And finally, there was this wave after World War II, late 40s and 50s, all these countries going, no, we've had enough of this. And you just look at country after country after country after country. There's a wave of
No,
getting their independence from the British Empire. And so you watch the King's speech and you'll see, a glimpse of the end of the age of the British Empire. So we've had David Morgan and others on our channel talking about the exhaustion stage of empires, and they say that's what the Western edifice is in right now, is this final throes, and there's a lot of volatility
well, I
and a lot
mean,
of danger.
I
Go ahead.
agree. And all of that same stuff you could argue we're doing all around the world, exploiting and doing it in a coercive manner. When you look at the whole concept of the BRICS, it's being by cooperation. None of these countries are beholden to one another. They're there because they want to be, and they're cooperating and building infrastructure. And yes, they are going into to develop the natural resources, and I guess you could call it exploited, but in a mutually beneficial way, not through coercion. So I think that's the only way to succeed, and without creating tremendous resentment, is to make it mutually beneficial. And that's the motto, or kind of the MO rather, of the West. And even if we do it in a much more polite way now, you could argue that that's what we are doing. And I think the world is tired of it, honestly.
And interestingly enough, it's not just the BRICS countries. We interview again Patrick Holland from the Missouri Freedom Initiative and others on our channel talking about the wave of states within the United States that are standing up against the federal government and saying, "Not on our turf." In the Missouri draft law, the bill that's up for a vote, it says right in there that the federal government would not be able to confiscate precious metals from owners of it within the state of Missouri. So in other words, they can say what they want in Washington, but we're not going to allow that to happen within the state of Missouri. So this pushback is happening within the United States as well at the state by state level, sometimes even at the local level. It's not just from overseas BRICS plus countries.
Yeah, I mean, who would have ever believed in secession and civil war? I mean, God forbid, but I mean, the way things are going, the divisiveness and the idiocy coming out of coming out of Washington, yeah, thank God there are states that are pushing back against, we're not going to allow cryptocurrency or excuse me, take
Mhm.
that back. We're not going to allow central bank digital currency,
Right,
and
right, right. Yep.
um, pushing back and using gold and silver as money. That's the American spirit. Let's hope it's strong enough to right the ship, because, part of me feels that we've 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 done so much damage. I hope we're able to right the ship, and there's still a long way to go before the election, but I think a lot of it hinges on the election. Just look at, just what happened yesterday with when Trump was talking about the auto industry, however he meant it. I don't think he was saying that there's going to be a bloodbath amongst the populace if he doesn't win. The way that things get spun, and it's so antagonistic. It's just awful. We should all be united as a country, and instead we're more and more and more completely divided. And that's the one thing that bothers me more than anything. And that's why I like having the commonality and the community on shows like yours with like-minded people who hopefully can influence one or two people they care about, obviously starting with themselves and their immediate family, because these are very, 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 as the Chinese curse says, interesting times. I think the next few months will be the most interesting of my 34-year career and probably my entire life. I hope it's interesting in a good way.
Just because some people have to take off, because we usually do a short, like a half hour for a weekly market update, I want
Oh,
to
you're
hit
going to
the
ask me.
the weekly specials quick. I got them. I got pictures here I
You
can
pull
share.
them up because I am
Give me a second.
completely at a loss.
Yep, no problem. Hold on one second. I'm just gonna get these. I'm gonna share these. And here we go.
Yeah, the Krugerrand, that's one of the six major mints. They are IRA eligible. The gold Krugerrands are not, but the silver Krugerrands are. It's a great coin. I like them an awful lot, and that's a great price.
310 over spot. These are Dates vary. So these are potentially backdated. Some of those might
I
still be in
think
mint
I
sealed
could have sworn
packages.
I saw they were 2023. I think. Let me
These say
double check
it
real
says dates
quick.
vary here, but yeah.
Okay, you would know.
Okay. And then we still have the 1 ounce palladium bars for 119 over spot, it looks like.
Yeah, we do, and that's a very challenging one to understand. I mean, for the last several years, it's been so much more expensive than platinum, and now it's still about 80, $90 higher than platinum. But most of my career, it was a third the cost of platinum. So it's an interesting one, and with the majority of all of what is available mined, I think is in most of it in Russia, a little bit in South Africa. It's a diminishing um, metal, at least in terms of availability. And that's the first time that I've offered it on special, I think, ever, other than last week.
And here's one I think will grab people's attention.
Yeah, the 10th ounce maples. I think, I'm not mistaken. Sorry, I'm battling allergies. My eyes are watering. I think that they come in sheets of 40. And look, the 1/10 ounce coins would always be my favorite. You can never be too flexible, whether you're playing poker with your buddies or driving on a super crowded highway or investing or living. You can never have too many outs or too many options or too many exits. So I do like these a lot. And it's a good price. Again, going to be not that much less expensive than the American Eagle, but a little bit in terms of a savings.
All right. Well, thanks for that quick update. And then I'm going to get us back to our questions because there was one that was on deck here. And that is from Peter Schweigart says, are Type 1 Eagles getting harder to find?
I mean, in terms of silver, yeah, and gold too. I mean, yes, they are, and Type 1 being those minted prior to July of 2020. So they are, and I think it's fair to say what one of the things that differentiates my company from others is that if I have backdates, sealed boxes, 2015, 16, 17, 2010, whatever, we're going to sell them for the same price or lower than the common day the brand new 2024s. A lot of the companies out there will try to tell you that these dates have a premium added to them, and I don't believe that to be true. In fact, I think it's not true. It's a way to add a story to something that I don't think if you were to call these companies and say I have 75 mint boxes that I need to sell, they're not going to ask you what year it is. So I think it's important to note that if you're looking for back dates, call us. Sometimes we can tell you the dates that we have, and you can end up getting a better deal than what you see on other very reputable, honest retailers who I think shouldn't be doing that. That's just my own personal opinion. There are some dates that are a little bit more money, but as a company, I've never looked at that as something that should command a premium. Either way, buy or sell, different from what they're all selling at, unless it's like the 1996, which is a value, or the Type 1 2020, right before they'd switch to Type 2. So there
Mhm.
are certain cases where they are, but fair point.
Uh, as long as we're on that point, any resolution or new information come to light about the controversy or the suspicion that has swirled around the Type 2s that came out that had the missing read that moves around from year to year, supposedly to catch or to prevent it making it so easy for potential counterfeiters to make fakes of the American Eagles. But some wary potential buyers wanting to steer clear of those, thinking that they might have some kind of tracing or trackability or scannability or something like that that would make them remotely sensible, so people wouldn't be able to hide them or something. Any evidence that we have been able to determine that there was any validity to those concerns about RFID chips or anything else embedded in the tracing trackability of those coins?
With the best of our ability through scanning and x-raying, we've seen nothing in them to say that. Bix Weir did an interesting video on it, and he talked about how Honeywell has something called diamond dust that can be put over it that is analogous to a fingerprint. That each every time you put it on this, it would have a different characteristic than any other one. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. It is a Honeywell technology. They've been very clandestine, if you will, about the notch. And yes, it's at 9 o'clock on the 2024s. It was at 6 o'clock on the others. I mean, It's weird. I don't know. Like with the maple leaf, they have a micro maple leaf,
Mhm.
and it's a tiny, tiny, tiny micro engraver that machine probably cost 20 million bucks or whatever. So no, there hasn't been, strangely enough, but watch Bix's video on it's kind of interesting, and it'll give you something to think about.
There's a question from Goldie Family. It says, Andy, what is your favorite silver to stack? Rounds, heavy bars, incremental? What?
I mean, honestly, it's the American Eagle. For the last 3 years, other than this year, I bought nothing but kilo and 100-ounce bars. And that was unusual to me. I've always preferred coins, but I couldn't stomach paying them when, wholesale cost on them was 11, 12 bucks over spot. So I bought bars, but I did, when I told everyone that this is what I was doing, trade a lot of my bars, not all of them, because I would have lost too much silver, but I traded a lot of them into American Eagles. When we talk earlier about seeing things we never thought we'd see, I never thought we'd see states recognizing legal tender coins um, as currency, and I think there's something to be said for the American Eagle. So if I had my druthers, it would be the American Eagle. A close second would be the Canadian Maple Leaf. I think right now, where the premiums on the legal tender coins, even like the Krugerrand, are so close to that of a round or a bar. Look,
Hmm.
we're all taught to maximize, and there are times when you're trying to maybe do the gold silver
Hmm.
ratio or whatever. You want to maximize the ounces, like in an IRA, load up on bars and then switch to gold someday. Fine, but what is your motivation? If it's to have it and to use it and to have the utility, I prefer the coins, but there is an expense to that, and I recognize it. So I'm not so married to it that where I wouldn't say. In fact, I told people for a few years, don't buy the American Eagles. They're too expensive, but they're not right now. I mean, they're still much higher than they were historically, but in relation to where they were, they're not. They're better values in Maple Leafs and Kangaroos and Krugerrands and Philharmonics and Britannias. But if the question is, what's your favorite? It would be one of two coins, either the old pre-1904 Morgan silver dollars or the American Eagle.
We got a question here from Jen O. If we open a monster box, does it lose value or authenticity?
No, it doesn't. It's best to leave them sealed, but I understand the willingness or the curiosity and wanting to open one. If you bought a few, you might be best served to leave the other two sealed and open one. But no, in general, it doesn't. I'm not going to ask someone, is it sealed or not? But it does, in the respect that if I were sending a mint box to you all, you'd want it sealed. And so the demand is such that it would be preferable to keep them sealed.
Tony Rico says, where is the best place to find the physical price of silver and gold in Shanghai and Dubai markets?
Oh gosh, I don't even know the sites. It's you can Google it and you'll find it. It's not hard to find by Googling it. Just ask for the spot prices of gold and silver in those various markets, and you'll find it.
Golden Warrior says all PMs will be weighed and checked to make sure they're real. So when we buy back monster boxes, whether they're opened or not, of coins, there are various steps that we do take for validity. Folks, I'll post a link here when we get on our next question. Andy's talking. I'll post a link in the stream here of a video we did behind the scenes at Miles Franklin's bullion operations, where we actually showed some of the testing equipment that's done. The simplest testing is dimensional testing. There's weight testing. There's electromagnetic scanning testing. There's X-ray testing. Different kinds are warranted and justified in certain situations. Not all of them are always needed. But anyway, Andy, any other thing you have about validity or guaranteeing authenticity of what Miles Franklin sells? Because that's a question that we get asked often by people. How do I know that what I'm buying is real when they buy from Miles Franklin? And while you're answering that, I'll go find the video and I'll post it here.
I mean, look, we guarantee it 100%. And this is one of the reasons to buy from any of the main companies that are reputable, because, you know, reputation is everything, and so is making sure that what you sell is authentic. And remember, when we have something in our inventory, that means we paid for it. And if we're going to pay for something, we're going to know damn well that it's real. And in all of my years, I've only a few times seen anything that was fake, a few fake Morgan silver dollars and a couple of fake gold coins that were really made of gold but were fashioned to look like numismatic coins. Fake coins are Not something you're going to see very often when you're dealing with the reputable company. But here again, look, I would just simply say that gold and silver have been money for so long that, and that's one of the reasons to buy coins. You can hold it in your hand, you'll know in 2 seconds if it's real. But there really isn't an easy way to answer that other than to say work with reputable companies, and we guarantee it 100%. We will always guarantee satisfaction and money back guarantee if anything were ever found to be fraudulent, or which I've never had in my entire career. So buy from reputable people. Don't cut corners. Don't be penny wise and pound foolish.
And that's one of the reasons when people are considering a gold for silver ratio swap in the future, where they might be buying silver now, hoping that if it goes up a lot and then they can swap into gold in the future, why they might go for bars, because the low premium in, low premium out, they know they're not going to get as much out, but it's the delta, it's the round trip that they're looking to minimize for the ratio trade that you've recommended in the past.
Well,
Sorry,
that's why it's so great within an IRA too, because there are no tax consequences and it's all in storage. But yeah, I mean, there's costs involved. And if things, I mean, all it's got to do is go to, 42 to 1, which would be the 200-year average, and it's over a double from where it is now. So I think the delta would be, once it gets there, it will be covered. I'm not worried about that. But you're right. And going back to that question, there are machines or scanning equipment that you can buy, the public can buy, and it's
that.
it's about the size of a big remote control. It probably costs you
Yep.
10,
There's a
12,000
there's a picture,
bucks.
guys, and if just I'll interrupt you for a second. If you look in the live chat, in fact, I'll pin that comment so it goes to the top here. Hold on. I just replaced the pin message. So look at the top of your live chat. Boom. There's the link to the video of behind the scenes at Miles Franklin's bullion operations. You go about halfway through that video and it shows exactly what Andy's talking about. It looks like one of those big grocery store scanners you see
Yep.
sometimes when
Yep.
and it's actually an electromagnetic scanner, and they actually found a fake bar, and they're showing it detecting the non-authentic gold bar. It looks for all the world like a real bar to
You can
the
buy
naked
that
eye.
if you want to spend the money. If you have a large enough allocation of metal, then do it. But short of that, it's tough to tell, and that's why you work with reputable people.
Yeah, and we had a bit of it's like we kicked a hornet's nest the other week when we were talking about predatory practices by some dealers who specialize typically in IRA accounts, because that's typically you've people have saved up their entire working career. Now they're making their big move to protect their nest egg at the end of that entire working life, and there's these sharks are waiting for them, and taking advantage of people by overselling them things that are way too expensive, or talking them into things that are collectible, or some things that's not necessary if their primary goal is to get real assets, to get cold hard assets that get out of the banking system, out of the stock market, out of the bond market, and to have something that you said that's simple.
Yeah.
Um, that's not the way they're being served. So anyway, we got a lot of new testimonials sent to us just in the last week since we broke that story again. So again, our heart goes out to anyone who's been hurt by predatory practices on unscrupulous dealers that try to oversell, upsell, whatever. Even though Miles Franklin does carry pre-33 semi-numismatic, whatever, we have that stuff available. We just don't push it, and we price it extremely competitively. So if you want to say anything about that before we move on, any
No, I mean, you said it.
follow-ups?
You said it perfectly. I have great disdain for those companies because everyone has a mom and a dad or had a mom and a dad. And when you are doing that to elderly folks who have no way of ever recouping, it's awful. And it's really pervasive, and it's gross. And that's why I mentioned that Washington Post article last week for people to read. I don't want to mention names, but it is typically the companies that focus on IRAs. Typically, their MO is to sell quarter ounce coins that you've never heard of for 900, 1,000, 1,100, and silver coins for 50, 60 bucks an ounce, and 1.5 or 2 ounce silver coins for 150, 200 bucks. It's crazy. And they give justification for it by saying, well, there's great profit potential. Yeah, well, I got a bridge to sell you too. And I try to do this the right way without outing the companies, being respectful, and but it's really bad, and you won't have to ever worry about that with us. And yeah, we do have numismatics, and I love numismatics. And if I started in this industry in the 90s when numismatics were $20, $30 an ounce more for an MS-62 St. Gaudens than a Gold Eagle. I would tell everyone to buy them, but there's a time and there's a place, and you need to know what you're doing. Um, and the modern minted numismatics to me is lipstick on a pig. I mean, it is. Everything that comes out of the U.S. Mint is MS-69 or MS-70, and first strike means nothing. And it's dumb. Now, there are times when a few of them are proofs and this and that have greater value, but what are you buying it for? Are you buying it
Hmm.
to get rich, or are you buying it because it is wealth? And that's the question. And if you're buying it because it is wealth, then you want the greatest utility and versatility. And you don't want to have to say, no, no, this is a special MS-70 first strike
Hmm.
coin. Well,
Hmm.
I don't care. I want an ounce of gold. I think that's kind of where the rubber meets the road.
We've got oh, I just missed it. Oh, we had a comment here. I'll try to find it again. Who said that's the reason it's this thing about authenticity is why he loves. Okay, here we go. Great Nate says why I like tiny 90 US 90% silver coins never counterfeit. If you have a circulated Mercury dime, you can tell it's old, and they're beautiful because of that. In fact, that's one of the things you've always said you like about the old gold is that you can tell it's a piece of history right in your hand. So there's something even more beautiful about that.
If you're going to
Uh,
take the time and effort to counterfeit something, you're not going to do something that has such small value as a mercury dime or junk silver. But a numismatic gold coin or a 10-ounce gold bar that is a Pamp Swiss 10-ounce gold bar. If you Google 10-ounce fake Pamp gold bar jewelry district, New York, you'll find it. These are things that are hard to detect unless you have machinery and would be worth their time to do it on a per unit deal.
well, I think we're getting caught up. Why don't we show the specials one more time before we wrap here? And I did get information from my son Elijah while we were talking that you're right. The 2023 Silver Krugerrands are the ones that are on special for 320, 310 over,
Yeah, I'm
not.
not that disconnected. I try to pay attention best I can.
Let me bring these back up again here. The picture might still not show it, but they are 2023 mint fresh. So here we go. I'm going to share these three again, and here we go. There's the Palladium bars, 119 over spot. Remembering that Palladium was at one point almost, what was that, 50% more than platinum. It was flirting with more than that, and now uh, it's less. So that's a special value. And here's the 1 ounce silver Krugerrands. These are actually 2023s, mint fresh, and 310 over spot, a really good value. And again, on the 10th ounce gold maples, uh, Andy, your reminder to us about why, if you're going to have gold, why small coins can be versatile.
Yeah, I mean, in life you can never have too many options ever, and so having something, a 1 ounce coin is better than a 10-ounce bar, half ounce better than a 1 ounce, quarter ounce better than a half ounce, and a tenth ounce. It just gives you greater utility and versatility, and they look exactly like the 1 ounce. But, the reason people don't go all in on the smaller coins is they carry higher premiums that are mint
Mhm.
imposed, not just dealer imposed. So the mint charges more money for the fractional coins. And so you should have some, but if that was the way that you accumulated all of your gold, it would come at a detriment to the number of ounces that you could own.
One thing I want to brag about the Canadian Mint is that they always seem to be a couple, more than a couple years ahead of the other mints in terms of their engraving level of detail, and therefore, again, less likely to be counterfeited because the level of engraving is so detailed, like on the leaves and the radial lines, etc., that they're makes them a less attractive target for potential counterfeiters because they're
And they do
just,
have the
yeah.
the the micro mini maple leaf for all their
Mhm.
counterfeiting anti-counterfeiting measures, and they are the only mint, to my knowledge, that makes 5/9 fine gold, which everything that's 24 karat is 4/9. They are able to make somehow 5/9 fine gold, and they offer usually once a year. They offer some form of special coin. I haven't seen what it is this year, but they are neat and the purest coins in the world.
Let's see if we have any one last question here. Uh, just we have questions that are often asked about Andy. How do you like your move to Florida? You've been there several years after thinking you were never going to leave Minnesota. Any words of wisdom about strategic relocation?
The best thing I ever did. I love it here on many levels. I'll always love Minnesota, but it's a state that to me I don't quite recognize the way I used to, and I love it here. It was a great move. I would recommend anyone to live here. I can't say enough about it. And I never was bothered by the cold. I skied, I snowmobiled, I shoveled my own driveway my entire life, and I never thought about it until I was golfing in January, and then I'm like, wow, I get it now. But hey, I won't bash Minnesota, but I love it here.
Well, I want to thank you, Andy, for joining us tonight, taking time away. Please thank your wife and family for giving you up for this hour to spend with our
It's all
viewers.
good. Pleasure's
Uh,
mine.
we have 2,114 people who've been here enjoying your presence tonight, and we're very grateful for it. By the time we wake up tomorrow morning, it'll be more like 20,000. So we're always grateful for your presence here when you can do the live streams, and I really appreciate it. And each and every one of you out there, thank you for taking the time, for being here, being part of Liberty and Finance. It's a very supportive community. I see the affection and respect that everyone gives each other in the live chat every single time. It's remarkable. They say culture eats policy for lunch, and that's what makes me think about Andy when you talked about not sure that if the states will be able to stand up against the feds, but if the fiber of the American people, those who really love liberty, those who really love freedom, those who love the truth, those who love families and love our beloved country, will stand up and stand together. We do not need to roll over to tyranny, and we do not need to roll over to dishonesty. And so standing up for honest money in the face of dishonesty everywhere else that we turn is something that we can do. And we're helping each other do it together. Remember, folks, my encouragement to you, if you have direct responsibility or know someone who you have the ear of that has fiduciary responsibility guarding a large endowment of any kind that people are counting on being protected, find a way to, if you could, to reach out to us at Liberty and Finance, and we will be happy to consult with people about even taking a small portion of that, 1%, 5%, 10% of that, and protecting it in a way that will be outside the banking system, outside the stock market, the bond market, outside the destruction of the value of the dollar that's happening faster than we're being told, because we're not being told the truth about that. So, Andy, as always, on behalf of everyone here, everyone in the live chat, they're saying thanks, Andy. Thank you, gentlemen. Great live stream. Thanks again, fellers, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, Fazdal, who's always with us, says, I was so entranced by Andy, I barely even chatted. People love to hear the way that you explain things. It really is relatable to ordinary,
Appreciate
everyday
that.
people.
You
So
know what? I'm an ordinary guy. I am. I mean, if you knew me well enough, you would say that. And I'm just someone who puts a lot of effort into studying and somehow has the ability to talk to people about it. It's not, this is all logical stuff. And I appreciate the compliments very, very much. I really, truly do. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
good night, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Make sure you share this widely and spread the good news. Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we ended the stream. Good, good.
All